So, I'm trying to sort of set the scene so as Colin shines, and it's only right that I should actually set the scene so as Allan shines as well. But what's quite interesting about this, I do an immortal memory. Some of you may have been unfortunate enough to hear it a few years back, but I do an immortal memory where I just pick what goes on certain points in time in history. And what I do is I then look through Burns's work to see the relevance of it. And this was delivered to me, yesterday and today, with uncanny aplomb in terms of how it actually works. And if we listen to the rights of women, so you can actually see the link here that comes in. While Europe's eye is fixed on mighty things, the fate of empires and the fall of kings, while quacks of state much each produce his plan, and even children lisp the rights of man. Amidst this mighty fuss, let me just mention, the rights of women merit some attention. Ranald, you're on.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I always think it's fitting that we get a chance to speak about the ladies on Burns Night, because if it's one thing that Burns was, it was an admirer of women. 15 children he sired, 9 in wedlock, 6 out of wedlock, 3 different women. The man loved the ladies. And of course this is reflected in his poetry. And just to perhaps pick one example, we talked about Tam O'Shanter, and we're going to get the recitation a bit later on. Yes, he talks about the charms of women, but I think he takes it a bit further. He understands that there's differences between men and women. He understands that there's male logic and there's female logic. Now, gentlemen, that might sound like an oxymoron, but there is, bear with me, there is female logic. And think about Tam O'Shanter. That's Tam. He's off to market. He's working hard for his wife and himself. He works hard at market. And what he normally does is, after that hard day's work, retires to the inn for 1 or 2 small drams. His wife doesn't see it like this. And of course, when he's about to go off again, she says to him, "She told thee well, there was a skellum, a blethering, blustering, a drunken blellum." That's his wife's view, Kate's view. Wrong. That's female logic. Male logic is a critical part of market day. Gentlemen, we know Tam is networking when he's in that pub. He's out there making critical contacts with people like Suitor Johnny, his ancient trusty Drouthy crony. Critical contacts that will lay the foundations for his business next time at market day. Every time he has to buy Suitor Johnny another beer, that's reinvesting money in his family's future. Male logic. Kate doesn't get it. Perhaps one of the issues is it's really down to communication and how men and women communicate with each other. A bit more of a contemporary tale here. I share an office with a chap who's in the Household Cavalry Regiment. He works in Glasgow. His family live down in London. Every weekend he takes the train backwards and forwards. When he came in on Monday, I noticed he'd got a brand new iPhone. But the thing that really caught my eye was it was bright pink. And I decided to pull his leg slightly, and I said, "Oh, I see you've got a new phone. This is obviously the new regimental colours for the Household Cavalry, is it right?" And he gave me a wry smile, and he said, "No, actually it was a gift." He must have seen the slightly puzzled expression on my face. And he elaborated. He said, I was on the sleeper train last night, coming back up, just about to retire to bed, when there was a knock on the door. I answered the door. It was a young lady. She said, "Can you help me, please? My heating's not working. I can't find the guard. Could you perhaps see if you could get my heating working? It's a snowy winter's night." Of course, he knows nothing about heating, but a damsel in distress, and the gentleman he is, he cannot refuse. So he goes next door, stares at the heating, flicks the switch on the heating, gives the heating a couple of good, hard bangs, and shuff comes on. And the young lady says, "Oh, that's super. That's absolutely great. You are my shining knight. I must give you a reward." And she throws open her robe to reveal herself scantily clad in a lacy bra and lacy panties. And she looks him in the eye and she says, "Take what you want." And he said, I looked at her, clearly the bra and panties didn't fit me, so I took her phone. Once he told me the tale, I sort of said, I don't think that's what she meant somehow. And it comes down to communication. And ladies, why don't you just say What? You mean? It would be so much simpler for us. I thought about how Burns would cope with modern times and how he would sort of deal with male logic and female logic in the 21st century. And I was sort of pondering this, and my younger son came in and he said, Dad, I've just been hearing that the HMV is in trouble. He says, do you think they're going to close the store in the Thistle Centre in Stirling? I said, they might do, son, they might do. And he looks at me in disgust and he says, do you know what, they'll probably put a shoe shop in there. And out he went. And I reflected on that and I thought, there's a lot of shoe shops in the Thistle Centre as it is. Why on earth would we need another shoe shop? What's the point? And then I thought about supply and demand. Supply and demand, gentlemen. I wager if you go back home and you open your wardrobe, there will be 3 pairs of shoes there. There'll be a pair of brogues for smart, deck shoes for casual, maybe some cowboy boots to be a bit funky and jeans when you open your wife's wardrobe, if you dare, and you'll be up to your Oxters in shoes of every shape, size, description, and so on. And that is clearly the demand side. It's not men. It's obviously women that feed this demand. But we put up with this. If your marriage is going to survive, you just accept that although you've got 2 feet and women have got 2 feet, they need hundreds and hundreds of shoes. You don't marry into money, you marry into shoes. And you just get on with it. You just accept it. And you go on with life and leave it alone. Oh, that life was so simple. It doesn't work out that way. Because eventually, in any relationship, you'll get to that point where you face the shoe question. Yes, gentlemen, you will, if you haven't faced it, face the shoe question. You have to picture this. Give you this scenario. You're getting ready to go out as a family. There's a family wedding somewhere, and you're getting ready, you and your wife, to get in the car and drive off to a family wedding. You, gentlemen, get your suit on, get your tie on, open your wardrobe. There's the cowboy boots, there's the deck shoes, there's the brogues. Are you going to put the cowboy boots on to be a little bit fat? No, it's sensible. You put your brogues on. You're ready. You look across to your good lady. There are clothes strewn everywhere. Gentlemen, I've seen tidier battlefields than the product to go and get dressed for a day out. But you don't see anything. You've learned, you don't see anything. And you look across, and she says to you, I'll be 5 minutes. Okay, you nod. You go downstairs, you've got 5 minutes. You take things out to the car, you pack them in the car, you've got 5 minutes. You check the petrol, you check the oil, you check the water, you check the indicators, you check the rest of the lights, all 4 tyres and the spare, because you've got 5 minutes. You go in back, switch the television on, watch a bit of golf, watch a bit of the tennis, because you've got 5 minutes. And it's at that time that the penny begins to drop. Einstein, with all this stuff about black holes and all those fancy physicists with the Hadron Collider and all that sort of stuff, and time and relativity and all that sort of stuff, they want to be in your house watching how time moves differently. Your wife's upstairs halfway through 5 minutes and you spent the last 45 minutes in a different time continuum. It gets worse, gentlemen, as you begin to think this through. And you actually work out why it is that men always seem to die younger than their wives. Because you're working in a different time zone. When your wife says he died young, you're actually 140 by her. As you pondered that, you're feeling a bit peckish. And you know what it can be like at weddings. Photographs go on forever, and you never get to sit down and have that wedding breakfast. So you walk through to the kitchen, and you open the fridge. Bit of cold pizza. That's okay, bit of cold pizza. That'll just sustain me before the wedding breakfast. But then your eye catches a bit of homemade steak pie, just like we had tonight. Homemade steak pie, just at the back of the fridge there. You think, I'll have to heat that up, I'll have to fire that up in the microwave. Have I got time? Have I got time? I've got 5 minutes! Of course I've got time! You're just about to pick up that piece of pie, and there's a noise behind you. You turn round, and there's your wife, fully ready, fully dressed. What goes through your mind? I'll have to have the pizza. I haven't got time for the pie now. But suddenly, your mind's distracted when your wife looks at you and she asks you the shoe question. Which shoe? And you look down, and her left foot is a shoe of feminine description. On the right foot is a different shoe of feminine description. You look back up at her, down at the shoes. What runs through your mind, gentlemen? What have I ever shown in our relationship that I know about female shoes? When have I mentioned it? Why should I know about female shoes? When you're about to mention this point to your wife, when you look at her face and you catch that expression. And that expression is indescribable. But then the penny drops. This expression was the inspiration for the Egyptian that carved out the Sphinx. This was the inspiration for Leonardo da Vinci when he was painting the Mona Lisa's smile. It explains it all, that indescribable expression on your wife's face. You're about to reveal to her that you know the riddle of the Sphinx. You can see that in her face. She's not interested. She's not interested in solving why the Mona Lisa smile was painted in a certain way. There's much, much more weighty matters. Which shoe? You look back down at the shoes. They look the same. It's just two shoes. Okay. You've got to do better than this. Okay, so what are you going to say? And it's really quite simple. You're going to say to her, darling, you look absolutely beautiful in either shoe. Both of them suit you. And you look up and you catch her eye, and you know that she knows what you're going to say. And it's not the right answer. It's not the answer she's looking for. That's a weak, weaselly, non-manly answer. She needs you to be that knight. This is a great challenge and you need to rise to this quest. If you fail, it's going to get bad. You're going to be treated to, not only in the car, but in the days to come, the audible silence. We've all been there, gentlemen. We can handle silence. We don't mind silence. We can read the paper, watch the television and so on. But it's the audible silence. There's got to be the sigh that goes with it. There's got to be the tut that goes with it. The intakes of breath. And gradually you get worn down and you don't know what you should have done, but you're going to apologise anyway. Do you know, they were going to use audible silence out of Guantanamo Bay, but it was deemed too evil. So you've got the audible silence, so you know you must avoid that. What is it you're going to do? You pat down the left shoe, the right shoe, right shoe, left shoe. They still look like two female shoes. You're struggling. Then you apply a bit of male logic in here. A little bit of male logic in there. It's a 50-50. That's 1-to-1 odds. It's like a red and black at casino there. You can man up to odds like that, 50-50. Okay, you could hit the audible silence, but you could strike the jackpot here. You're looking down, you're going to go left, you're going to go right, you're going to go left, you're going to go... You look up at your wife, and you catch her eyes one more time, and you sense that you're way off beam, badly off beam here. If you pick a shoe, you don't pick that shoe. You reject the other shoe. If you say go left, the automatic question is, what's wrong with the one on the right there? Well, you have no idea what's wrong with the one on the right. What do you know about shoes? And she knows that you don't know about shoes. And what's the answer to this question? It isn't a 50-50. It's 100% lose. You're going to lose. What do? Gentlemen, this is when you have to give up on mere logic. The answer to the shoe question is you must never answer the shoe question. Whatever you do, don't give her an answer. Don't say left, don't say right. What you must say is you must say, what about the other shoe of that one? Spookily, your wife has got those other shoes just round the corner there. She puts on the two shoes. Turn around in the shoes. Okay, yeah. Walk over there, walk back here. Let's see the first pair of shoes back on again. Put the first pair of shoes, walk over there. Whatever you do, don't make a choice. Don't get too clever at this point, though. You're no God man out there. Don't start talking about colour combinations. Just take your time. Because what will happen is quite quickly, is your wife will say to you, she'll say, right, I'm going to pick this pair, and you're going to move on if you want to eat that pizza, or we're going to be late. It's your fault, you see, that you're going to be late. It's you that's got the time. But trust me, when you get in the car, and you're driving off, you won't get the audible silence. You'll get talked to about hats and dresses and bridesmaids and all that sort of stuff, and you'll nod knowingly and you'll progress on the way. But then you'll get to that point, and this is where it pays off working in that female logic. You'll get to that point where she will say, you're really sweet giving me a hand, choosing my shoes. And she'll say those three words that really matter to a man in a marriage, she'll say to you, "I'll drive home." So, when I think about male logic and female logic, and if Burns was alive today, and so on, and he had to write a poem, I think it would be to shoe. I think that's what he did. Ladies, we don't understand you, but we really appreciate when you recognise when we struggle with your logic and we try to get it right. We really do appreciate it when you drive home. Gentlemen, can I ask that you've got your glasses charged and be upstanding, and I give you the toast. The lassies.
What can I say? Yeah, I'm not going to go anywhere near those, but there's some interesting concepts come up in that. I'm sure that at least part of the population of the audience are thinking, is there really such a thing as male logic? Because it doesn't seem like it to me half the time. The other thing is, are you honestly really expecting us to believe that the household cavalry regimental colours are pink? The other thing is that, you know, the thing about the time aspect of it, the fact of the matter is that we've all been programmed and our time is completely out anyway. When you put a disk into a PC and it says download in 5 minutes, and 4 3/4 hours you're still sitting there and it says 17 seconds, then jumps to 45 hours, then jumps back down again. It's no wonder it's all screwed up. But I have to say that I didn't realise that audible silence was the secret weapon of Gitmo. The other thing is, it's probably worthwhile mentioning actually that a word of sympathy, I think, for Sharon, who sat there through that, knowing that it's her wardrobe that you're talking about. So she let me in on a little secret about a dinner party that she had arranged, and your job was to go to the local market because first up on the menu were snails. And you, with your male logic and the 5 minutes, thought, I've got the time for a swift one. So you went in, and an hour and a half later, you looked at your watch and thought, damn, that was it. You grabbed the bag of snails off the bar, you're out there, and you just get back to the driveway, the door flies open, and Sharon is just about to go for the jugular. When, quick as a flash, you tip the snails out the bag on the drive and say, come on guys, we're nearly there. Thank you, that was wonderful to hear. Thanks very much. That brings us on to the right of reply, as they say. Now, if I was panicking when we had this conversation about the speakers and everything else, I was even more panicking when we had a conversation about whether or not Ranald had actually remembered his speech and whether he'd memorised it and everything else. And Colin said, I've got past that stage. I've got it all written down and I'm fine by that. Audrey says, I've got mine on a tablet and I'm going. Audrey, can I ask you to take the floor, please?
How I follow that speech, I'm altogether not too sure. But on behalf of the fairer sex, I take up the challenge of replying to Ranald's fine toast. Unfortunately, this requires me to both lower the tone and talk about men. Not that I'm in any way suggesting that those two things are connected. I note I have been allotted 20 minutes of your time, but don't worry. To suit the gentlemen among us, I will keep this both simple and small. And given the cold spell, gentlemen, it may be smaller than you remember. On researching this topic, as clearly the faults of the male are not obvious, I have come to understand that Burns himself was aware of his own shortcomings. At the age of 31, with 8 children to 3 different mothers, he wisely recounts in Tam O'Shanter, whene'er to drink you are inclined, or cutty sarks run in your mind, think you may buy joys or dear. Or for those who have already partaken in the national drink, whenever to drink you are inclined, or short skirts run in your mind. Watch out, you might lose more than you bargained for. For all the reputation that has built up around Burns over time, I wonder how many of the men present had truly learned this sound lesson by the age of 31. For myself, the learning ability of the male has always held something of a mystique. Toddlers of both sexes get potty trained. For the female, that is all the instruction they require. For the male, however, the simple principles that you pee in the bowl does not take a sound footing. They lose sight of this while gaining directional control of the cleverly designed piece of equipment that they start to explore in their early school years. I suggest that this is the first sign of a well-known male failing: multitasking. Although personally I suspect that this is actually a conscious choice on behalf of the adult male. After all, in frustration, the female often overtakes and takes the task on. There are, however, clear multitasking issues apparent in the 7-year-old boy, so the jury is out. I have to admit here that it seems possible that Burns could have been atypical on this issue, given that there were 15 women in his life. Even still, I doubt he could have baked a cake and helped with homework while discussing a shopping trip with his best friend on the phone. In fact, the chances of the average male doing any one of these activities is pretty slim. Discussing shopping trips is actually probably the least likely activity that I can even imagine for any two men. This shopping version, I believe, is the root cause of the male fashion struggles. Now, Burns is always depicted as a rather dapper gentleman in the pictures that abound. However, this cannot be said for all men. After all, their most demanding fashion decisions are usually: which tie should I wear? And black or brown shoes? Dapper though Burns appears, it's clear he thought he was far more of a man than I believed him to be. In his Merry Muses of Caledonia, a more secretive collection of Burns' poetry and songs, which the ladies may not have noted, but it is worth a peek. Well, within this we find a rather bawdy song, 9-inch will please a lady. Of course, this could either explain the size of his burgeoning brood, or, speaking as an engineer, much more likely, the inaccuracy of his ruler. As a female engineer, possibly the most dangerous potential failing of the male is any tendency towards misogyny. I always struggled to reconcile hatred of women with a man who had 8 partners, 13 children, 6 of which were girls. Thankfully, like the organisation of this supper, the Australians came to the rescue. Misogynists have made the press again lately, although unlike in Burns' time, the ladies stood her ground and made her point. Indeed, this Australian lady helped me out as well. Getting the definition of misogyny changed from hatred of to the prejudice against women. Now that does kind of fit with Burns. The culmination of this research, therefore, has given us the following list of failings: short attention span, tendency to drink, chasing the fairer sex, slow learners, lack of directional control, inability to multitask, aversion to shopping, limited fashion sense, tendency to exaggerate, prejudice against women. Now, it's all right, lads. I realise that this probably isn't even the top 10 of the failings. However, I want to know what half-witted woman sought equality in the realm of insurance. With all these failings, most of which impact on the driving, the outcome is never in doubt. Ladies, we now have to pay more. However, it has proven beyond any doubt that we are better drivers. That is, as long as you don't ask us to reverse a caravan. So in closing, I return to prose. The lass without her laddie, is a sorry sight to see. Like a haggis without the oatmeal, or a golf ball without a tee. Without a laddie for a husband, the nights are long and cold. We know this for a fact, because by Burns we have been told. For all that and all that, he says the man's the gold. So lassies in the room, I invite you to stand. And raise your glasses to those gentlemen in the room, without whom we would ne'er be broken-hearted, but without whom we would also never love or be loved so kindly. To the laddies.
Excellent, excellent. Another checklist going on there. I did wonder when we started off with man's shortcomings, I thought, this is going to be a long one. But covering men's learning, I can relate to that. Potty training, and looking at it from a different perspective. I've heard about the multitasking time and time again, and I think most of us actually fall into that. Domestic activities is quite an interesting one. It does make me wonder, and there's a wonderful thing about, you know, I remember my brother's first wife. There's an essence coming up here in terms of that, and she said to him, she said, if we were domestic appliances, what would you be? She said, well, what would I be? He said, I'll tell you what you'd be. He says, you would be a vacuum cleaner because you suck the happiness out of this marriage. He says, come on then, what would I be? He says, you'd be a dishwasher. See, when you first get it, it's brilliant. But after a while, you realise that you're better off doing it yourself by hand. That's where the first marriage ended. We then touch on men's fashion sense, which I think is quite interesting as well. And then, of course, the insurance slip-up. But I thought what was really interesting about this, I was talking to Audrey beforehand, just in terms of exactly, you know, what goes on in terms of marriages and happy marriages. And we've got 10 years on the clock here. 10 years you were saying then? Yeah, 10 years between Audrey and me. And I said, okay, so what's the secret then of a happy marriage in terms of that? She said, Peter, to be perfectly honest with you, twice a week we go out, have a wonderful meal, nice bottle of wine, soft music, and then a slow walk home. Jim's on Tuesday and I'm on Friday. Audrey, thank you very, very much. So that, moving swiftly along, that then brings us to probably what I would consider is one of the most difficult slots to actually fill, especially considering every speaker's probably plagiarised at least 2 or 3 verses of what he's going to say anyway. But it's interesting, I introduced Graham to a colleague of mine earlier on as the chairman of this, the chairman of that, and everything else, because I think I've lost count of what he's actually been in boards and committees and everything else. But I do know that he worked, and I think maybe still does work in some areas with the NHS, and he was with 3 surgeons, and they were having a conversation about their favourite type of patient. And one of them said, well, for me, it's got to be a librarian, because, you know, when you open them up, everything's in alphabetical order. And the other one says, no, he says, I think the deal here is you get an electrician, because when you open them up, everything's colour-coded. And the next one says, no, see, it's an accountant, because when you cut them open, everything's numbered. And Graham says, I've heard that. He said, I've heard all of that. He says, and for me, the best patient is a Westminster politician. There's no spine, there's no guts, and their brains and their bums are interchangeable. Graham, the floor is yours.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Peter said, you've heard most of the Tam O'Shanter this evening, so we're going to try and join up in the right order, and we'll see how it goes. So, Tam O'Shanter, a tale. When Chaplain Billies leave the street, and drouthy neighbours meet, as market days are wearing late, and folk begin to type the gate, while we sit, boozing at the nappy, getting fou and unca happy, we think no of the lying Scots miles, the mosses, waters, slaps and stiles that lie between us and our hame, where sits our sulky, sullen dame, gathering her brews like a gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. This truth found honest Tam O'Shanter. Is if it e'er a nicht did canter, all there that there are tunes or passes for honest men and bonny lasses. Ah, Tam had the but been so wise, and ta'en that ain wife Kate's advice. She told the wheel there was a skellum, a bletherin, blusterin, drunken blellum, that from November to October, a market day there wasna sober. That ilka melder with a miller, thou sat as long as thou had siller. That every nag was caught a shoe on, the smith and thee got roaring through on. That at the Lord's house, even on a Sunday, thou drank the cup and jean till Monday. She prophesied that late or soon they'd be found deep drowned in doon, or catch by warlocks in the muck by Alwa's old haunted kirk. Ah, gentle dames, it gives me greet to think how many counsels sweet, how many lengthened, sage advices the husband for the wife despises. But to our tale. A market night, Tam had got planted uncorrect, fast by an angle, blazing finely, with even swats that drank divinely, and at his elbow, Suitor Johnny, his ancient, trusty, drouthy crony. And Tam lured him like a berry bella. They'd been food for weeks together. And the night drove on with signs and clatter, and aye the ale was growing better. The landlady and Tam grew gracious, with favours secret, sweet and precious. The suitor told his queerest stories. The landlord's laugh was ready chorus. The storm without McRae and Russell. Tam didn't mind the storm a whistle. Care mad to see a man sae happy. He'd drowned himself a man in nappy. His bees flew hame with loads of treasure. The minutes swung their way with pleasure. Kings may be blessed, but Tam was glorious. For all the ills of life, victorious. But pleasures are like poppy spread. He sees the flower, its bloom was shed. Or like the snow falls in the river, a moment white that melts forever. Or like the borealis race that flits, how you can point its place. Or like the rainbow's lovely form, vanishing amidst the storm. No man can tether time nor tide. The hour approaches, Tam mun ride. That hour o' night's black arch the keystane, that dreary hour he mounts his beast in, and sick a night he takes the road in, as ne'er poor sinner was abroad in. The wind blew it was blowing its last, the speedy gleams lowers in the blast, that was hollow, loud, deep and lying the thunder bellowed. That night a child might understand, the deal had business on his hand. But well mounted on his grey mare Meg, a better never lifted leg, Tam skelped on through dump and mire, despising wind and rain and fire, whilst holding fast his good blue bonnet, whilst crooning on some old Scots sonnet, whilst glowering round the prudent cares, whilst moguls catch him unawares. Kirkcalaway was drawing nigh, where ghosts and owlets nightly cry, and by this time he was crossed the ford, where in the snow the chaplain spoored, and past the birds in Meaglestein, where drunken Charlie breakneck's way, and through the winds and by the cairn, where Hunder found the murder plain, and near the thorn, the the well, where Munger's mother hanged herself. Before him, down towards all his floods, the rattling storms rode through the woods, the speedy gleams of darkness swallowed, loud, deep and lying, the thunder bellowed. Loud, deep and lying, the thunder bellowed.
Glimmering through groaning trees.
Kirkcalaway seemed in a blaze. We're glimmering through the groaning trees. Kirkcalaway seemed in a blaze. Inspiring bold John Barleycorn, what dangers that can make us scorn. With tippenny we fear the evil. We Ushkapa will face the devil. The swat say reamed in Tammy's noddle. Fair play, he cared nae deals a boddle. But Maggie stood, richt sair astonished, till by the hand and heel admonished, she ventured forward in the light and wow, Tam saw an unca sight. Warlocks and witches in a dance, nae till young brought you frae France. The hornpipes, jigs, struck spaes and reels, put life and metal in their heels. A winnock bunker in the east, there sat Old Nick, in shape of beast. A towsy tyke, black, grim and large, to give them music was his charge. He screwed the pipes and got them skeletal, roof and rafter, odd and middle. Coffins stood round, like open presses, that showed the dead in their last dresses, and by some devilish cantrips licht each in its cold hand held a licht, by which heroic Tam was able to note upon the haly table a murderer's banes and gibbet errands, twa span lying wee unchristened bairns, a thief new cut it for the rape, who wi' his last gasp was gabbed and gape. 5 tomahawks were blood red rusted, 5 scimitars were murder crusted, a garter with a babe had strangled, a knife a feather's throat had mangled, whom his ain son, o' life bereft, and the grey hairs yet stuck to the heft, and mair o' terrible and awful that even to name would be unlawful. As Tammy glowered, amazed and curious, the mirth and fun grew fast and furious, the piper loud and louder blew, the dancers quick and quicker flew, the reel they set, they crossed, they quick, Ilka, Carlin, Swat and Reek it, and Custer dies to the whack, and Link it at in a sack. Oh, Tam, had they been queens, all plump and strapping in their teens, their sarks instead of creasy flannin been snow white 1700 linen. These breeks of mine, my only pair that ains were plush a good blue hair, had it been them of my hearties, for ae blink got the bonny birdies. But withered beryl dams, auld and drawl, rigwoody hags would span a fold all limping and flinging on a crubbock. Oh, I wondered at me, up my stomach. But Tam kenned what was what through Brawley. There was a winsome wench in Wally, that night enlisted in the corps, lying after Kend and Carrick shore, for many a beast the dead did shot, and shook both meikle corn and beer, and held the countryside in fear. Her cutty sack, of Paisley Harden, the willow lassie she had worn, in longitude, though sorely scanty, it was her best, and she was wanted. Little kenned I Reverend Granny, with 2 pound Scots, 'twas all riches, were had a graced a dance of witches. But here my muse her wing mun cure, sick flights are far beyond her power, to sing on any lap and flying, a supple jade she was, and strang, or how Tam stood, the cane bewitched, and thought 'tis very e'en enriched. E'en Satan glowered and fidge fu fain, and hotched and blew with michtle main, till first ane caper, sin another, Tam tint his reason altogether, and roars out, "Well done, cutty sack!" And in an instant all was dark, and scarcely had he Maggie rallied, when out the hellish legion sallied, as bees buzz out with angry fight, when plundering herds assail a bite, as eager runs the market crowd, when catch a thief resounds aloud, as open pusses mortal foe, when pops start before the nose, so Maggie runs, the witches follow, one on an aldrich screeching, "Ha! Oh, Tam, they'll get thy fairn, in hell they'll roast you like a hen, in vain thy Kate awaits thy coming, Kate soon will be a woeful woman. But do thy speedy utmost, Meg, and win the keystane o' the brig. There at the end the red tail may toss, the running stream the darn across, but ere the keystanes you could make, the fainter tails you had to shake, for Nanny, far before the rest, hard upon noble Maggie press, she flew at Tam, with furious hettle, scarcely was she Maggie's mettle, a spring, brought off her master hail, and left behind her ain grey tail, left Carlin clocked her by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump. Now, what this tale of truth shall read, ilk man and mother's son, tak heed, whene'er to drink you are inclined, or cutty sacks run in your mind, think ye may buy the joys o'er dear, remember Tam O'Shanter's mare.
Graham's annual workout on the Tam O'Shanter run. Next appearing at Newmarket, Haymarket, Ascot, and Haydock Park in the 3:30. Bets are being taken as we stand. Graham, thank you so much for that. It's always a pleasure to actually watch Graham get involved in that, and the action and the effort that he puts into running through it and bringing us all along that journey is something actually to be reckoned with. Having been there and done that myself, it's not an easy task, but he's certainly an inspiration for me every time. It was this man that actually got me to start doing it. not entirely sure that I need to thank him for that because it's a bit of a burden, but he's inspirational when it comes to that. One of the, I used to work with Graham, and I've actually known Graham 26 years, and so glad I remembered that earlier on this evening. But it's quite interesting as time's gone through, and it's been an inspirational to me in many things as we went through that. And we worked at the Industrial Society together, and we had the benefit of being in Glasgow, being what we would often sort of see as being remote from the head office, which was in London. And it was quite interesting because it gave us the liberty and the freedom to do what we wanted to do with various sort of initiatives and training programs. And the other thing was that Graham was regarded by those in London as the Sean Connery of the industrial society. Which he kind of liked. And it was quite interesting, and it reminds me of in the news the other day, Sean Connery actually had a book fall on his head. And he said it wasn't a problem, I don't have my shot to blame. My principal job is to make speakers look good tonight. We're really trying as much as we can with that. I'd like to, as we sort of bring the evening towards the final furlong, keeping the metaphor there, I'd like to hand over to President Ian to do the final toast.
Peter Farr's done all the organising. It's been a great night, and I hope in 2 years' time, Peter, where are you? Over there? Yeah. In 2 years' time, I hope you have such an enjoyable evening as I've had this evening. Peter Hill, thanks for hosting the evening. It's been great fun. But what we've grown to expect from an Aylesbury man with a huge love of Burns and knowledge of Burns and years of experience in the Green Loading Club. You've done a wonderful job of linking tonight, Peter. Thank you very much. There's a story of Burns. Well, there are many stories of Burns, but this one was Burns and his brother Gilbert were leaning over a farm wall, watching the hens and the cockerels scratching about. One of the hens gives the cockerel the eye, and the cockerel he starts to trip across to the yard to do his manly duty. Just then, the farmer's wife comes out and she scatters some seed in the yard. The cockerel stops and starts to peck at the seed. Burns turns to Gilbert and he says, "Gilbert, I pray that I will never be hungry like that." Okay, next week it's old clothes and porridge, 6 for 6:30. The speaker is Alison Rennie from Chaz. The final toast is Rotary International and Rotarians through the world.
Finale, as it were. So just very quickly, just actually running through this, we're indebted to the following people for making tonight such a successful evening for us. There's been a lot of firsts tonight, actually, and the first is Chrissy Nancy, who was Liz Balding, who carried in the haggis for us. So Liz, you may or may not know that Liz and her husband did the programmes as well. Thank you. Liz and her husband have moved up, I think now. Is that correct, Liz?
Just about.
Yeah, just about moved up. And they're not the haggis side of things is a wee bit different. They're normally used to pizza. And Charlie had actually phoned up on the way up. He phoned up a pizza place in Preston just for a break, and he said, "Do you deliver?" And they said, "No, we don't. We do chicken, pepperoni." Also in their absence, to thank very much the Queen Victoria Junior Minstrels. Thank you. That was a really interesting sort of kick-off to the evening, so thank you very much for getting that arranged. The address to the haggis was Eric ably addressing. A man that has actually read so much about the dangers of drink, he's decided to give up reading. Also, Gillian giving us a very, very good start in terms of the grace to kick us off with the joke in there as well. It was interesting because there were some stories about food in there, linking it in with it. And Gillian was saying that the other night she went over to the India Gate for a curry, and she had a pelican curry, and food was great, but the bill was enormous. I'm cringing, I've heard them before, I tell you, it's terrible. Okay. Also, many, many thanks to Eve and the team through in the kitchen. I don't know if they can sort of hear us if we applaud loud enough, but thank you so much for watching. The anecdotes we actually did through the evening for the following, but nevertheless, a fantastic mortal memory for us from Colin, so thank you very much for that one. Ranald risking life and limb going out of the front there, taking on the women, and thank you very much for that. Audrey for very, very reasonably replying and actually letting him off quite lightly, I think, letting us all off quite lightly, so thank you very much. High-tech comes to burn suppers, and last certainly but not least is the man running the horse all the way through the field, Graham. Thank you so much for Tam O'Shanter. Likewise, I would also like to thank Peter Farr, who has put all of this together tonight with the committees that he's been working with, and not to mention not only arranging one piper, two pipers, three pipers, but also actually arranging Cammy for us to do, that was the first as well actually. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource that we actually have there, so thanks very much for that, for doing it. Finally, also for setting the whole thing up for us as well, President Ian, topping and tailing the evening. It is very, very much appreciated. And thank you for being here. Thank you. All that remains is Old Lang Syne, which is on the back of the programmes, which has actually been printed for us by Liz and Charlie, so thank you very, very much for that. On the back page of the programmes, Old Lang Syne, if you would please actually be upstanding and start. Brought to mind, should old acquaintance be forgot, and Old Lang Syne. For Old Lang Syne, my dear, for Old Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Old Lang Syne. And here's a hand, my trusty friend, and here's a hand o' mine. We'll take a girly one for Old Lang Syne. For Old Lang Syne, my dear, for Old Lang Syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet for Old Lang Syne. Finally, thank you very much for your pleasure, your company and your enjoyment, and if you are driving tonight, please remember to take the car.
Thank you.